What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 12 Dynasty rookies, how we would rank them heading into the 2023 season. So should be an absolute blast. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? Who would you have higher? Who would you have lower? All of that good stuff. We will do our best to answer all those questions that you might have. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And as you can see here, I've got the list of rookies ranked. Now, keep in mind, this is PPR based. And also, look, some of you might be in those super flex leagues, 2 quarterback leagues. I did try and, still prioritize the quarterback position, but I don't want to make it too quarterback heavy. I know, again, there's some of those that are in tight end premium leagues. So I did include one tight end here in this list to kind of talk about that position and maybe how much higher he would be if it was a tight end premium league. But let's just kick it off, and we're going to go through all these names one by one. So, look, to nobody's surprise, Bijan Robinson comes in at the 101 spot, and for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, premier position, the running back position. In your typical leagues, running backs are the most important. Now, again, obviously, if there's some crazy scoring for quarterbacks, for something like that, then that's a little bit different. But, to each their own, that situation if you are set up in a league like that. But as far as comparing him to all the other running backs, he is in a good landing spot. The Atlanta Falcons, good offensive line. They're going to use him a lot. The volume is going to be there. He's going to have the opportunities, not only rushing volume, but also pass catching volume as well. Look, there's a reason why people are calling him the best prospect at the running back position since like Adrian Peterson. That doesn't go, being said lightly. Robinson is the 101. People were tanking for this guy in dynasty formats in rookie drafts. So Robinson is going to be a hot commodity. He's going to be a first-round pick in redraft leagues. And that's even with him being on the Atlanta Falcons offense, which will have its ups and downs. But especially like down the line, Bijan Robinson is going to be that dude. So 101 for sure. Then, this is where at the number 2 spot, I did want to focus a little bit on the quarterback position. Anthony Richardson would be my number 2 guy. So the reason for this is primarily because what Anthony Richardson can do with his legs. He is an absolute freak at the quarterback position. Now, he's not as accurate as a Bryce Young or as a CJ Stroud. Everybody knows that. That's well documented. But if you can do damage with your legs for fantasy football purposes at the quarterback position, that is a cheat code, and that will, make you look a lot better than you might be. And I think that's what we have here with Anthony Richardson. Now, I think his situation is one maybe compared to a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud, where short term he's going to have more success. So if you're looking for just this year, if you're looking for, 1, 2, 2.5 years down the line, I think Anthony Richardson is, a little bit above a Bryce Young. But if we're talking like totality, 10 plus years, then I would be going Bryce Young. He is my number 3 guy. I think he is in a tremendous situation in Carolina in terms of the coaches that he's surrounded with. The Panthers, they've got a pretty good offensive line. And yes, everybody's concerned about the size of Bryce Young, but look, in today's NFL, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue as some people are making it out to be. You can barely touch the quarterback nowadays. And that'd be like saying, big guys don't get injured. So guys that are like 6'7" and above or something like that don't get injured. Big guys, small guys, they can all get injured. You can't predict injuries. The Panthers have done a decent job in terms of surrounding him with serviceable options. Miles Sanders is there. Thielen is a crafty veteran. DJ Shark, Marshall, and you added Jonathan Mingo, who I think will be able to help him as well. Hayden Hurst. So it's a really good opportunity for Bryce Young. Now, I don't expect him to necessarily right out of the gate be a guy that is a top 10 quarterback or something like that, I think it might take, a year, two, something like that. That's why I'm trying to be realistic in all of this. That's why I have Anthony Richardson higher than Bryce Young to begin with, because those rushing stats, assuming that Richardson is a starter for the majority of the season, are going to be more immediate than what Bryce Young might do to begin with in 2023. Now going back to another position, we have Jordan Addison at the number 4 spot here, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to be in arms about this one, that Jackson Smith-Njigba isn't the number 1 wide receiver here. But again, hear me out. Njigba, I do think he is the most talented wide receiver in this class that came in. But in terms of landing spots, he's going to have to contend with Lockett and DK Metcalf. I like the quarterback situation for the Minnesota Vikings more so as well. But I think Njigba is essentially going to be like, the third option on this offense. And I'm not saying that that's going to last for 2-3 years. It might only last this season, but I think Addison is going to have a more immediate impact. If you're looking for it, in terms of just after this year, after next year, then I do think Njigba is the more logical pick. But I did want to shed some light on Addison because he's going to be taking that Adam Thielen role, opposite Justin Jefferson. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. I think that's going to be a very, very legitimate duo. And if something does happen to Justin Jefferson, Addison would slot into that number 1 spot for the Vikings at the wide receiver position. That is also valuable, whereas, again, Njigba has to jump both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But either way, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys. If you want to flip-flop one of them, totally makes sense. But I wanted to present them in this manner because of the things that I mentioned. Short-term, again, versus long-term success. Then at number 6, we have got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. I absolutely love Jahmyr Gibbs coming out of college, but I don't like the landing spot. There's a reason why some people called this a huge reach for the Lions, why they gave them an F grade, just because running back is a position that they were fine with. I mean, they just paid David Montgomery. Now, sure, they had DeAndre Swift and traded him to the Eagles, but still, Jahmyr Gibbs, 1-2 type of punch with David Montgomery. So I think it's a situation where if he had gone to almost any other spot that actually needed a running back, then Jahmyr Gibbs would be arguably the number 2 name here on this list, or at least in the top 3. Now, if David Montgomery, 1-2 years from now is a non-factor, then okay, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to skyrocket up these rankings. But at the same time, that could take 2-3 years. We know the shelf life of running backs ain't all that high, so keep all those things in mind. But again, I think he's still knocking on the door of a top 5 guy because the running back position is a tough one. It's one where a lot of teams now have running backs by committees, and it's extremely, extremely valuable as far as fantasy football purposes are concerned. Looking at number 7, we've got another quarterback here, C.J. Stroud. I just think compared to the other 2 guys, Richardson and Bryce Young, Stroud is in a little bit of a worse-off situation with the Houston Texans. I still think that they are a team that has a lot of question marks. I don't love their weapons. I don't necessarily love, the coaching staff that's there. So that has me a little bit worried. But, I actually tend to believe in the top 3 quarterbacks from this draft class, Richardson, Bryce Young, and C.J. Stroud. I know a lot of people, are saying next year's class is going to put this class to shame. But I think these top 3 guys can have success. I just think that with C.J. Stroud, it's going to take a little bit longer. But once we get outside the top 5, top 6, I think you could argue there's a lot of question marks with all these other guys. And C.J. Stroud being a quarterback, also having some success, obviously in college, and for such a long time being in consideration for the 101 pick for the Panthers. He is, I think, the guy with the highest upside and also the highest floor, you could argue, out of these other players. Now, speaking of other players, here at number 8, we've got Jonathan Mingo. Probably a surprise to a lot of people at the wide receiver position. But look, the Panthers were really, really high on Jonathan Mingo. And it's possible that they drafted him a little bit sooner than he should have gone off the board. But when you look at this draft class, Mingo is one of the more physical, one of the bigger wide receivers compared to this draft class, which had a lot of smaller, fast guys. In considering where he came out of college-wise, Mingo's getting those comparisons to A.J. Brown, to DK Metcalf. Now, he's got to work a little bit on, his route running, things like that, but I think it'll come. And I think the Panthers are going to give him a good opportunity to contribute right away. They consulted a lot of guys, former wide receivers like Steve Smith, believer in Jonathan Mingo. I think it's going to be a nice pairing, him and Bryce Young. I would take a chance on Jonathan Mingo. I do believe he belongs in the first round of rookies. Then another rookie wide receiver, Quentin Johnston, going to the LA Chargers. Now, this is a situation somewhat similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba, where I think he's going to have to contend with some other guys that are more proven for a little bit until he gets, that big volume, until he's consistently producing, because you've got Mike Williams, you've got Keenan Allen ahead of him. And sure, Keenan Allen probably after this year probably won't be on the Chargers any longer, but for 2023, I do think Quentin Johnston is going to struggle getting on the field. And that's something that I have to, take into consideration. And it might even be a little bit longer because the Chargers have decent wide receiver depth. And Justin Herbert can make a lot of guys look good. So I do like the upside of Johnston. I think it'll just take a little bit more time. Then we've got Dalton Kincaid going to the Buffalo Bills. Now, look, I like Michael Mayer more so as far as tight ends are concerned coming out of this draft, but the landing spot for Kincaid does make a difference, and I think for the better or for the worse, you always have to take landing spots into consideration. And here, yes, Dawson Knox is still there, but, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to use Kincaid a little bit more differently, and he's on an extremely, extremely high-powered offense and a quarterback that I really believe in Josh Allen. So it might take him a year and a half. I mean, typically rookie tight ends, it takes them time to develop. Even Kyle Pitts, who everyone was just absolutely losing their minds over, if you look at from fantasy production, it's going to take some time. So Kincaid here, I have him at the number 10 spot. Obviously, if you're in a tight end premium league, I know a lot of people are, to kind of make that tight end position a little bit more, viable. They're going to put a little bit higher of an emphasis on somebody like a Dalton Kincaid, but I still think that this is right around the right spot for him. Then at number 11, we've got Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. So one of these smaller, quick wide receivers that a lot of people liked in this draft class, going to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I think he's a little bit more polished than a Josh Downs, who you can see I have at the number 12 spot. And I do have a little bit more belief in Lamar Jackson than I do in Anthony Richardson. So that's why I have Zay Flowers higher. But don't get it wrong, I really, really like Josh Downs as well. And I think he could be an absolute steal because I am higher on him than most. A lot of the mocks that I've seen, Josh Downs is going in the second round of those rookie drafts. I'd be okay taking him at the end of the first round. I really think as Anthony Richardson develops, so will Josh Downs. And they've got guys opposite them to take some pressure off the rookies. I mean, with Zay Flowers, you've got Rashad Bateman. I don't really want to count Odell Beckham. I don't really think he has all that much left in the tank. And, he's probably not going to be in Baltimore for all that long. And for Josh Downs, you're playing opposite Michael Pittman. That'll go a long ways in helping you. I think both these guys are extremely, extremely talented. I liked what I saw from both of them coming out of college. So I think they're right there, neck and neck. Wherever you're drafting Zay Flowers, Josh Downs shouldn't be too much further down the board. But that's pretty much it. Those are our top 12 rookies for this 2023 season. When you're approaching your drafts, hopefully this has been helpful. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Again, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? If you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.